Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome back to Houselights, the podcast where the body count rises, the rules get thrown out, and the bangs get traumatically uneven. I'm your host, Tristan Riddell, and yes, I do keep a secret voice changer in my desk drawer, but only for creative purposes. Joining me today from deep within the backlot of Sunrise Studios is the man who's rewritten more plot twists than Roman Bridger could ever have dreamed of. He's the real director behind the mayhem. It's John Mills. And also with us is our resident Parker Posey enthusiast, a man who knows how to steal every scene, chew the scenery, and still ask if craft services has oat milk. It's Darren Moser. That's right, we're talking Scream 3, Wes Craven's most polarizing entry, the trilogy capper that dared to go full Scooby-Doo and pre-meta about being meta, and where Carrie Fisher plays not Carrie Fisher. So silence your cell phones, lock your trailers, and let's follow the fax machine into the inferno.
Nice.
Gentlemen.
I like how we were cast in this one. I think
put
it was
more
effort
effort into that intro than we did. We're going to put into the whole rest of this podcast. I can guarantee.
I'd argue that more was put into that intro than the effort that was put into the script for this movie, but we'll get to that.
Actually, you know what? We could go straight into that because... So Kevin Williamson did not write this movie, and boy, does it show.
It shows.
He was unavailable to write it, but he did write a...
Did he not like money?
Yeah, right.
He was busy with, I think he was directing a movie, he was producing another movie, and he was the showrunner on Dawson's Creek. And so he just couldn't do it. He just did not have the time. And it was written by Aaron Kruger, who completely disregarded Kevin Williamson's outline and basically like wrote a new page every day, like as it was going on. And Wes Craven was so upset with Kruger's characterizations that he had to rewrite it on the day. And so this movie was put together in pieces as it was being made.
But let me ask this question, like very straightforward. Like, I don't understand how Writers Guild of America rules work or anything like that. But if you're on the set and you've got this writer and the writer is not doing what you want to the point where you have to rewrite everything that he rewrites every day. So it's basically like you're writing 3 drafts a day of every single page on top of running this production. Why can't Craven just be like, screw it, I need somebody else? And you bring somebody else onto the set. You say, Mr. Kruger, great, you have your credit, and we'll give you like a producer credit. Just get the hell off the set and bring somebody else in that knows what they're doing. Like, I don't understand. Are there rules against that? Is there some reason they can't do that?
I think there is rules against that. Like, I wish I knew more about it. I don't know how much Wes Craven rewrote. You know, I have no idea what quantity, if it was more or less than 50%. I have no clue. But it's just to illustrate that this was a mess
not a good
behind
sign.
the scenes.
Yeah.
But I will say, because it's easy to say, oh, well, you know, they were rewriting rewriting the pages they were shooting every single day, and that's a big mess behind the scenes. I will point out that when the director and the writer are in sync, such as in Edge of Tomorrow, like, they were doing, according to Chris McQuarrie, they were doing like daily. It was like, okay, here's the new page. Okay, here's the new page. And that worked out perfectly. But I think that speaks more to what you're saying, where it's like Craven wasn't digging what Kruger was laying down.
Well, I mean, just looking at the film schedule, the fact that it was recorded between July and September of 99 with the ending reshot in January of 2000. Oh,
and released in February
yeah.
of 2000. That's the damning part right there. That one right there.
That is rough.
And by ending,
money,
do they
though.
mean the entire like house part? Like,
no,
I have to
there's
assume
no
that
way.
means
That was a huge scene. There's no way they could have reshot that. I mean, I could be wrong.
But how do you go back to that if you want to change it? Unless you
could shoot inserts, like you could go back to it and like suddenly you're, you know, like the Patrick Dempsey character, I imagine probably got that smelled and felt like a change when he showed up at the end. I was like, I feel like this isn't how this went originally. with
That's true.
him.
He's actually only in a handful of scenes. Like he could have but why add a whole character like that just to give the twist? Because they obviously are getting towards it looking like it's him.
No, I'm saying that I have no idea. Maybe Tristan, you know the behind the scenes details, but when he showed up at the end, the way his character interacted at the end felt to me while I was watching it like that part got redone. That felt like a part that was definitely redone. It felt like there was something different about how he interacted with everything.
Which character are we talking about here?
Patrick Dempsey, the police officer guy.
I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about Milton for some reason. Patrick. Okay, so yes, you are correct that Dempsey's part was like basically where he showed up in the third act was completely rewritten. Because when he says goodbye to Sydney when she's in the police station, and he gets that really overly sexualized line that he says, he's like, my entire life or something like that, and then like walks away. Like he was written out of the script after that. Like he walks off into oblivion. And Patrick Dempsey shows up because this is another thing. Patrick Dempsey was hired a day before principal photography began. And so he had a night to, memorize his lines before the next day. And then as they were filming, he's like, where do I go in the third act? And they're like, oh, nowhere. He's like, that's absurd. He's like, my character is meaningless throughout the entire movie if he has nothing to do in the third act. He's the cop. He's the investigator. What's going on here? And so they're like, oh, crap,
it's
you're
like
right.
Dewey not being in the third act of Scream. He's like, he's the cop.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, he just is not at the house during the end finale. It's like, why would he not be there?
Yeah. And so Dempsey said, he's like, you got to write me in here. And so they did. And so, yeah, that's why it feels clunky. That's why everything in this movie feels clunky.
Oh, man, everything.
Well, but see, I came into this one, and the part I had seen before this watch, I was scanning through, maybe it was on Tubi or something like that, and it was the opening of this, and I actually liked the opening. I was like, oh, I like what they did with this, because Cotton got his fame. He was still kind of a douchebag. He had his fame and his money and everything like that. And he's an even worse person because he starts flirting with this fictitious woman on the phone after hanging up with his girlfriend. And then, the twist happens. And I actually thought it was kind of interesting the way that it set everything up in the beginning. And even though it telegraphs, of course, Cotton being dressed all in white, it's sort of like the end of Boogie Nights, where it's like, oh, I know there's gonna be blood everywhere here. Okay, got it. But it's
apparently Liev Schreiber insisted that he take his jacket off in the opening scene because he was working out like crazy, and he wanted to show people that he was been working out. That he was really feeling that sweater.
I respect that. Advocate for yourself, sir. Advocate for yourself. But yeah, I thought the opening I was looking forward to seeing this because I had seen that opening and I was like, okay, well, maybe it is pretty good. So
yeah, I mean, I texted you guys, or I think I did, when I was watching it, and I was about halfway, and I paused it. And I'm like, surely we must be about to the very end of the no. We are like square in the middle of this movie. We have a long way to go. And yeah,
I was actually, when you texted me that, I was sitting next to my wife and I commented that you said that. And I was like, Darren never tells us what he thinks about the movie before the podcast. And for him to be so frustrated that he had to reach out on our group
that's not
text,
a good sign. That's not a good sign.
Wasn't a positive. Net negative, arguably.
Darren, when did you first see this movie?
This was the first time seeing this. I had never seen this movie before. And it wasn't even like one of those, oh yeah, now that I watch it, it comes back. Like, no, I had never seen this movie. So I had no idea what was going on. I don't think anyone knew it. No. I mean, it's interesting watching this movie after watching New Nightmare. Because New Nightmare yes, we're talking about making a movie and the meta-ness, like this kind of, I don't know, it was really odd because it was like taking it another degree. Like, okay, we're on the soundstage and there's the house, and I feel like when movies are kind of all over the place, I default back to, what am I supposed to be feeling about these characters? What is the director? What is the writer trying to convey in these moments. Am I supposed to feel sympathy? Am I supposed to feel fear? Things like that. And for most of this movie, I just was like, I have no idea how I'm supposed to feel. I have no idea. It was just bouncing off the walls. So yeah, I had no idea going in, and I still have no idea going out of this movie.
Kind of jumping off of what Darren is talking about, John, I have a frank question for you, and I expect a frank answer. Is this movie a horror movie?
That is, okay. Frank answer? No, it's not. This movie, and I think that gets to the core of my biggest complaint with it, is that the movie is bound up by these quote unquote trilogy rules. And I really think that if you're going to extend this is meta horror, it's not valid. Like, horror trilogies don't exist. They just do not exist. And if you're making fun of the slasher genre in specific, a more apt thing to call out is, you have the Randy Meeks thing come in, is for him to say, you're going to feel like this is the last thing, but guess what? It's not really going to be over after this, but I'm going to get you through this one. Nobody knows what's going to happen. They could do a reboot like Friday the 13th part 5 in the next one. They could do this, they could do that, but they'll always come back and they'll always keep going so long as it's interesting to blah, 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 blah. You could go off all of that type of stuff. So I think that going into the trilogy navel gazing is a Kevin Smith-esque Star Wars reference more than anything else. Star Wars or Back to the Future or what have you. And of course, Jay and Silent Bob are in the movie for some reason, but whatever. And you can have, I think that the lack of Williamson is why things sort of break down on that level. Is it moves away from the horror and strangely goes more toward an action-y type of thing, which is, I think, very much in keeping with the fact, because I was reading that when Kruger was developing it and Craven, quote unquote, course corrected him, he had Sydney going more Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2. Like, she becomes a buff ass kicker. I read that and I'm like, oh, I can kind of see those fingerprints on this script. I can see where he was going with that. And instead they tone it back and she's meekly living in the woods somewhere. And it's like, honestly, it would have been more interesting to see her like on a compound constantly training, which is actually an impulse that they followed when they had Halloween 2018 was showing.
Just about to say that is absolutely the direction that they went with the Halloween reboot, the second Halloween reboot. So one thing that really, the lack of Kevin Williamson, all of the craziness in production, also Columbine happened on April 20th, 1999. This started shooting in July. This started shooting in July of that year. Because of Columbine, the studio told them to tone down the violence and up the humor. And that's exactly what we got. And there's even a meta reference inside of it. What are you talking? Yeah, there's humor in this.
Okay, yes, there is.
Yeah, come on. I didn't say that it always lands.
Okay, there you go. Oh, and I think if they're going to be shooting another Stab movie, I think it would have been funnier to have it be like Stab 5, and they're commenting on the fact that they're cranking these out so fast, like take that angle instead of this is the third one, like we're shooting the third one, like we're in the third one, like, and then it doesn't even matter what you're getting.
But there was so much ambiguity to Stab 3, where, like, okay, let me rephrase this. So in Scream, there is no Stab movie. In Scream 2, there is a Stab movie. That's when we first get it. And so it's a recreation of the first one, of the Scream that came out in 96. We don't do a Scream 2 sequel in Scream 3. We jump ahead and do Stab 3. But the thing is that there's so much emphasis put on the movie itself. The movie is about the making of the movie, but yet we have no idea what the movie is about. And also, they make it look like they're reproducing Stab 1 or Scream of 96 with all the sets and the cop who looks like Dewey in his uniform and everything like that. So you have no idea what's going on. You have no connection with it. It's just an excuse to get Sydney to walk around the set of the original Scream.
Oh, it felt like it. Like that time when she's actually on the set and she's reacting to it, like 80% of this movie has been set up for that shot. Like,
yes,
how do we get her from compound in the woods to standing, watching her relive that night, which you can do in other ways besides making an entire movie about it. But I mean, here we are. But yeah, it felt like that. And then again, we're introduced not only do we have our main characters, but we have all of their, quote unquote stunt doubles, to borrow from Spaceballs, the actors playing them, who we also are kind of caring about, kind of not. Like, there's a bunch of Hollywood stuff thrown in, and it's just, and then on top of that, at the very end again, and this is where I really wonder if this part was in the pitch or the main story, or if it came later. Does it all have to be tied up in a bow? Can it not just be a copycat? Like, everything has to be like, oh, it has to, like, this is the person that created the person that started, like, it almost felt too connected back to the Scream, to the ghost face, just a little bit.
I think it's kind of a victim of what John was talking about, where, Darren, what you're describing is a normal drama trilogy or a sci-fi trilogy or something like that, where everything goes back to the original. Because the rules that Randy is talking about are trilogy rules, but John, you're talking about how horror trilogies don't exist. It's just continuation. It's compilations. And so we are in the mindset of watching, Halloween films and the Friday the 13th films. And I can go on and on and on.
Nightmare on Elm Street, My Bloody Valentine, Sleepaway Camp. Shall I go on? I don't think
Purge.
I shall.
All those, like, we can go on and say, like, when the third one is never
they're
a trilogy. It's just a continuation. And so our brain is set in the horror universe, but yet we're trying to wrap it around trilogy rules, which don't exist. And so that in itself is a confusing thing to wrap your mind around.
It is. The thing is, there are elements of this that I think are interesting. I just think that it's the connective tissue that hurts it. It's the fact that they're rewriting and everything. There's such a first draft feel to this movie, where it feels like you have an idea of the scenes you want, but you don't know how you're going to tie them together. Right. We're throwing shade a minute ago on everything's constructed around having her in the set for the house. Yes, you're right. It is. That's still an interesting scene, the way that it's constructed and played out. There's a logical thing that doesn't really work with it, but that's okay. Right. It's still interesting to see the unreality of it all folded in on itself. That's cool. I like that. There's an interesting aspect to them being in the house, and then, having that paralysis moment of, wait, we should go out of the house. No, he's telling us to go out of the house. We should stay in the house. No, but that's exactly what he thinks. Like, that's actually a part where the humor does land, Tristan, to your point. Like, some of the humor does land. That's one of those moments where the humor lands, because it gets to that meta idea of, everybody loves to sit there and say, oh, I know what I do in that situation when they're watching a horror movie. But you have that scene right there where it's like, would you really, or would you overthink it the way that they're doing? We're like, no, wait, that's what they expect. And you just keep going around in circles.
And then, like, we have the idiot character who lights a match to use it as a light source, which only happens in movies. At no point in my life have I ever thought, like, man, it's really dark in here. I need to go get a lighter. Like, no, I find a flashlight.
Well, the thing is, the character is already established as a smoker, isn't he?
That's true.
But the thing is, that right there, what you're talking about, like, that's still such a stretch, because, John, I'll do a quick poll for you. Do you know where matches or lighter are in your house right now? Right this second, if you had to go run and get one.
Yes.
They're in the kitchen.
You do? Huh, yeah. Surprising. I figured you wouldn't. I figured you guys would be like, no, I just use my iPhone or something like that. When
you need matches, you need to light candles. Not when you need a light source, you use your iPhone.
Look at you setting the mood.
Like, I got one of those gun things, like, with the extension that you can.
Yeah. Is it one of the bendable extensions?
Yeah, the bendy kind.
Those are kind of cool. I like those.
Well, the reason why I brought it up is because it's so tropey that it belongs in this film.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you only see in movies. And so you're like, oh, okay. Like, I have such a love-hate relationship with this movie because, Darren, you and I were even talking beforehand, where I talked about how, like, season 3 is definitely the redheaded stepchild of this trilogy. But yet both you and I were like, yeah, but it's still fun. It's still interesting. It's still intriguing. And as I was watching it this time, I did not have the nostalgia goggles on it that I normally do, because I rewatch this series a lot. Like, I rewatch the Scream franchise a lot. And I never skip 3. I always watch 3 and I have a good time watching it. But for some reason, this time I watched it, like, when, Jay and Silent Bob show up, I'm like, what are we doing here, folks? What is going on? But then I laugh when Parker Posey jumps into Patrick Warburton's arms. Like it like those kind of little moments of levity I enjoy. But like when Jay and Silent Bob come in, it completely takes me out. And it's just, I think that's kind of the back and forth of the movie, where like one moment is endearing and charming, and then another moment you're like, what is going on? But it's like that back and forth.
I just want to take a special moment, because that's the second reference to it. I'll make the third because it's a trilogy. But the appearance of Jay and Silent Bob actually made me really irritated in this movie. For 2 reasons. One, I think it's such a lazy joke, super outdated by this point. But additionally, I can project myself back in time and it would have irritated the hell out of me, because of the fact that it layers on the fake reality of it all collapses in moments like that, where you have people playing a character from a different franchise in this franchise. Like, it breaks all of these rules where it's like, I'm already suspending enough disbelief pretending that Courtney Cox isn't Courtney Cox while we're making reference to other people. And the Jay and Silent Bob thing irritates me. And I'll go ahead and say it. The Carrie Fisher thing drove me nuts too. I thought that was such a lazy joke.
It felt like Blues Brothers, like something you throw in as like this tiny cameo, and then you move on and you're like, what was that?
But the thing is, in Blues Brothers, she's at least playing a character. She's not playing a character that's a specific call out to how she looks like herself. You know what? Because it's my first time watching it all the way through. It reminded me of Ocean's 12, which drove me up a wall when they had that Julia Roberts nonsense in it. That is the moment where Ocean's 12 became a hated movie on my part. I was like, oh, you didn't just do that.
Yeah, I've held out watching Ocean's 12, so I'm good.
Okay. Julia Roberts in Ocean 12 is this amped up to 11. I can forgive the Carrie Fisher thing. I can't forgive Julia Roberts. Now, Carrie Fisher was originally supposed to be Jamie Lee.
Oh, huh. Yeah. Okay. That would have worked.
Yeah. Right.
That would have worked.
Because if you see Jamie Lee, you're like, oh, it's the Scream Queen. Yeah. It's a meta cameo. With Carrie Fisher, you're like, what the hell is Carrie Fisher doing in here?
Yeah. I see. Then the joke lands, but you can't just substitute another actress and expect it to land.
Right. Carrie Fisher is an icon, but yet she's not a horror icon.
But if you really wanted to go deep dive horror callback icon, would have been to grab Patricia Arquette and have her in that scene, because she, like, one of her breakthrough roles was in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. And it's like, that would have been, if you can't get Jamie Lee, the next person on my call list would have been Patricia Arquette, especially because that's a Wes Craven callback in and of itself, even though he didn't direct 3. But like that super layers on the meta thing, especially if this is supposed to be the last Scream movie.
No, and but I see what you're saying, Tristan, because I feel like 2 handled it just enough. Like, they handled it well, where they showed like, oh, these are the real actors that played them in the movie. It's like, oh, okay, that's funny. Like, and they're real names and they're real people that we know as actors. Now in this one, we have other actors playing no-name actors who are meant to be these characters played by real actors. And it's like, it's a bridge too far. Like you said, John, like, yeah, because Courtney Cox is totally a reporter and not super megastar Courtney Cox in this.
Would you have liked it if Parker Posey played Parker Posey? Would that be funny to you? Would it be distracting? Like, both of you, what would you guys think of that?
No,
I think it would have been funnier if the actors playing them in the Stab movie were. No, I see what you're saying. That's what you're asking. It's like, are they playing themselves? I don't know.
No, to have Parker Posey playing Parker Posey playing a character that's played by Courtney Cox. No,
I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think it would have been interesting to see these people die. Like, if like Parker Posey dies in this movie as Parker Posey, I think that's funny.
But the thing is, having her so close to the others, I don't know that it would have worked for me. I'm not saying it's a deal breaker sort of thing, but I don't know that it would have worked for me, because then you're saying it's like, oh, well, Jenny McCarthy is playing Jenny McCarthy. And I'm like, it just, I don't know that it would make me dislike the movie more. I don't know that it would make me like the movie more.
Yeah,
You know?
I it's a toss up for me. It was just something that came to my brain. Darren, I do have a question for you. Like, you're very much the technical guy out of the three of us. Like, you build your own stuff. You're very creative, and you're very handy, very mechanical. What did
Am
you
I
think?
Ghostface? Yes.
What did you think of the voice changer emulating realistic voices?
I mean, in a way,
because we can't even do that now.
I know. In a way, I like the fact that they kind of don't explain it. They don't show how he gets the voice patterns, how he, like, it just is it's a MacGuffin. It's like the purest form of MacGuffin that just pushes the plot along. I did like, because you have to do something to up the stakes. I get that, like in the third one. And I did like the voice changer aspect, because in the second, it's always been a thing about Scream where the voice changer is hiding that there's multiple ghost faces, because anybody could be ghost. And that's very clever. And so I did, maybe like is too far a word, but I honored what they were trying to go for with the voice changer in this one, taking it to that next level of now you can't trust anyone that you hear on the phone. And that was very interesting. And they played that very well. Like that, I think as its core, that was a good concept. And I don't even think it was poorly executed. I think it worked where you don't realize that. I mean, we're not going to talk about the length of this movie, but as the movie's going, you don't realize that too early, where if you realize that too early, now every single phone call is suspect. It's late enough in the picture, at least for me, when I figured out he has some sort of recording and way of talking about each person, that it worked. But yeah, I'll just say that it's a MacGuffin device that it serves the plot and it works, but it is right on the edge of fantastical. You're talking about it as a MacGuffin. When I was looking at this movie and trying to break it down in my mind, I went back to, not Darren's principles of filmmaking, but principles of filmmaking in general, where, especially with horror, which we were already kind of saying this might not be a horror, you have to have your rules. You have to have, the fact that, people can't teleport. You can't have Ghostface instantly be across campus, without, there being a reason for it. You can't. So all that to say, I feel like this movie, because of the scripting issues, because of the jumbling, because of the pages, with a movie like this, and especially a horror movie, you need to have your ending and your rules locked in from the get-go. And if you don't, you're going to get this.
You mentioned the length of the movie, and I do remember watching it, and I'm like, man, this movie, like, it felt like a longer Scream movie. And then checking the time, it was like 111 minutes for the first one, 120 minutes for the second one, 117 minutes for this one. But this one feels like it's longer than either of the other two. And I think that gets to your point where it's like, there are just certain points where you're just like, oh, it's because what's on screen is not pulling you in. You're much more aware of the time, and it
or even
feels
taking too long to tell. Like, there's only this much story. I'm gesturing a small amount, and they're trying to tell it in a larger span of time. Like, it's like when you see a really good story and you're like, oh yeah, that works as a 30-minute television show. I could not stretch that into a 90-minute, or you shouldn't, without heavily rechanging it. So I think overall the length of this movie does not fit the size of the story it's telling or how it's telling it.
And the unfortunate thing about that is that I think that one of the things that one of the roads it goes down, I'm very conflicted about, because it feels in a sense cheap to have the story of Sydney's mother laid out the way that it is. It feels like it's just not put together the right way. What is the right way? I don't know. It just never clicked for me. I was like, oh, well, it felt weird to bring that element in. Now, given who produced the film, it's somewhat ironic, I guess, that it went that way. But I mean, am I alone in that? I mean, like the story of like tying it to Sid's mom and having the killer, spoilers, be he was her half brother,
half brother,
half brother. Like that whole thing was like, that just really feels like incredibly unnecessary to sort of to stir this sort of thing on.
Practically the second cousin, former roommate. Like it's out of nowhere at the 11th hour. And what did you think, Tristan? Yeah. Is it, because there were times with the whole mother part, especially when she's seeing her in visions. And I'm like, is that real? Is that someone else under the sheet? Like, I don't know. Because this movie is playing fast with loose with reality.
And that's the thing is, I feel like, John, you probably would have accepted, this is a wild guess, and I'm mainly talking about myself, but like, I feel like the ending motivation would have been better accepted if we didn't have that BS with the Maureen Prescott ghost. Because there's so many times where like Darren said, like, is it real? Is it not? And then at the very end, we have Scott Foley's ghost face all of a sudden know that Sydney is hallucinating about her mother.
Yeah, like, that's right.
Like, how does he know that? How does he know to play on her hallucinations and her fears and visions and nightmares and things like that? How does he know to do that? It's a cinematic shorthand that doesn't make sense. And it was completely unnecessary. They only had 21 days to use Neve Campbell because she was filming a movie at the time as well as a TV show. And so she's like, listen, I want to do this, but you got me for 21 days. Use it however you want. And so they did. And I feel like they're coming up with ways to think about it. They're coming up with excuses to use Neve Campbell, and they wasted her. They completely wasted her with those Maureen Prescott ghosts. And so I say all of that to mean, if we didn't have the Maureen Prescott ghost and Scott Foley's ghost face was just a half brother who was pissed that he didn't get the life that he wanted, but wasn't the motivation behind Billy, I think that would have landed better.
I agree. I don't think I could say it better myself. But to tack on to what you're saying, yes, the way that they used Neve Campbell the whole time felt like we've only got 21 days. I don't know what to do. So, okay, she's off in a ranch somewhere. Let's film. We'll figure out how to work this in. She's anonymized this way, and she's living in the middle of nowhere, and we're going to leave her up there. Although, and that's still obviously a vestige of, there had to be a version where it was a compound and she was training and for the fight and stuff like that. But even that, if they'd leaned into that, I'm not saying it would have worked or I would have liked it, but that's an interesting thought to pursue, that Sydney's out there training, fighting her demons, by taking it out on the woods and stuff like that. And at the end, she shows up and she's just an absolute like action heroine sort of thing, and comes in and like there's 3 ghost faces, but she just handily just defeats all of them because she's like, I'm ready for this, and just knocks the snot out of all of them.
So I looked it up, and apparently the ending, the what was reshot was the final fight, not the entire mansion scene, but the final fight between Sydney and the director, where apparently and what made me think of it was what you just said, is like, apparently she took him out too easily, where they were just like, wait, no, this has got to be a fight or die situation. Like we got to believe that Sydney could die in this trilogy. And that's why it takes longer to fight. That's why he shoots her. And then we have the vest reveal, which makes me laugh so much because bulletproof vests are so bulky and so obvious, and yet when she walks into the mansion, she is clearly not wearing one. And also, this is one of those things
where vests have no metal because she runs the metal wand over herself. Some metal?
No. You're thinking of like plating. It doesn't necessarily have plating.
Right. Sometimes it can have armored plating. Since we're talking about it, this is another thing where I'm just like, okay, Scream 3 is dealing with movie tropes on purpose, but at the same time, it bugs the crap out of me when movies make bulletproof vests an invincibility shield, where, like the Bridger is shot 4 or 5 times in the chest, and he just walks away. He would have had broken ribs. He would have been bruised, broken rib to breathe.
A potential heart attack caused by it, because there's so much trauma to the body. To your point, Tristan, he'd have gotten up and be like, see, give me just 1 second, just hold on. You know,
Yeah.
it would have been, it would have been a substantial amount of pain involved in that. Like it saves your life, but it doesn't turn the bullet into a tickle. You know,
it saves your
not
life.
The Terminator.
And it's also assuming that every single shot happens to hit you exactly in the torso when your arms aren't in front of you. Like, it's actually a very small area if you think about that. Like, so none of those bullets like hit your leg or anything, arm.
Well, I guess
it's center mass. It's covering center mass.
Yeah, center mass. But I'll give a push on that one because I guess Sydney's we know that she's a good shot, I guess, because she has guns in the house. So it's like, okay, well,
and that's another thing though, is that like they have to go like, because they went the bulletproof vest angle, no one gets shot in the head or extremities. And Sydney has shot all the ghost faces in the head previously.
She shot, but Billy was already laying down when she shot him in the head.
Yes, that's true.
As was
Billy's mom.
Head is an incredibly difficult shot. That's the whole reason you go for center mass, because it's the most body that you can hit. Although her grouping was
small.
Her grouping was very loose there. I would have expected a tighter grouping. But
Come on, Sydney.
Okay, so apparently, before we kind of head on over to maybe things we did like, the original, so Matthew Lillard said in a 2009 interview, so this was 9 years after the movie was released, that one original script was having Stu Macher survive the events of the original Scream, and he's in prison, and he's orchestrating these ghost face attacks from prison against high school students and ultimately targeting Sydney at the end. And because of Columbine, that was thrown out immediately.
I was going to say, that sounds like an interesting story.
Right, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That does sound like a very interesting story. I would have liked to see that movie.
That's mob stuff right there. Like organizing hits from prison.
Yeah. I would have actually, and the thing is, you could have said, oh, well, he was a celebrity when he got to prison, so people treated him better because blah, 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 X, Y, and Z and everything like that. You could have constructed a reasoning.
Right. Is one of his, or is one of Sydney's friends the girl that falls for the guy in prison and is like, been the connection, like it writes itself.
Oh my gosh, it does write. I was like, I'm nodding along like, yeah, let me get my notepad out. Jeez.
And then Columbine and no.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, it's, speaking of Columbine, that was actually, right before the first Star Wars Celebration out in Denver in 99. It was like 8 days beforehand. And so it actually was a topic on like 60 Minutes and everything like that. And in the lead up to Phantom Menace even coming out, just to give an example of exactly how much sort of impact that had, was people even started looking at Star Wars as like, oh, well, gosh, this movie has violence in it. And it was like, well, wait, pump the brakes on that one, guys.
Yeah.
But
kids today have no idea how impactful that event was, not just in the tragedy of the event. And I'm not making light of it, but just how it affected the zeitgeist in our daily lives of our conversation, and in pop culture and media and books and television. There was just a nationwide reevaluation of violence in our lives.
Well, I mean, the same sort of thing happened after 9/11, because I remember with that there was like a hijacking and a plane explosion in the first episode of 24. And it was already in the can, and then like 9/11 happened. And like, if you go back and you watch that pilot episode, they like kept the scene, but you can see everywhere where they sort of like did a zoom and pan to like keep things out of frame suddenly.
They changed
every so often.
Ending of Lilo and Stitch. The red spaceship that's very plane-like initially was commandeered and flying through a city in Honolulu. And so they changed it to be they drew over it and made it a alien spaceship flying through mountains in the countryside of Hawaii. So
it really is fascinating, to look at. I mean,
Spider-Man trailer makes me think
Spider-Man trailer, and there was an episode of The Lone Gunman, the spinoff of X-Files, where in the pilot episode, they are on a hijacked plane going towards the two towers, and they actually got and like this aired around the same time, like it aired before it or something like that, or maybe
like a couple months or something
like that. And I remember hearing in an interview that the producers got a call saying, "Why'd you write that?" And they're like, "It was totally just an idea we had." But yeah, and Scream 3 is a consequence of that. Is of that of the country reevaluating what we put in our pop culture. I don't feel like we really do it that much anymore because we're so inundated with it. But it's a fascinating.
There's so much. Yeah, I mean, back then there's not as much content, and now there's such a flood of content
held by the companies, meaning like they need to make a profit. Now anyone can make content, so it's like it's like, how do you?
And we're also so much more interconnected than we were 25 years ago. You know, like something, I'm not making light of it, but something god awful happens every single day because we know of everything that's going on in the news. But yeah, like I was saying, it's just like, it's a fascinating thing to talk about. And with like Scream 3 is no different. And so before we kind of give our final thoughts and our ratings, I do want to say like what did you enjoy about this movie? Because this movie's it's not garbage. Like, it's not hot garbage. Like, it's not where you're just like, oh my god, I can't even get through this. Like, no one
Tristan's
can act
above a 1.
Yeah.
You know, it's because I'm not wrong here. Come on, I mean, it's not that. It's just like it's such a misfire compared to the previous two. And so I would like to you know, like John, reach into the depths of your soul and revive that black heart that you have and try to figure out what was enjoyable to you in this movie.
Well, I'm always a fan of Emily Mortimer.
This was her American debut.
Very much. Yep. I think she's great. Patrick Warburton, you put him in a movie and I will pay money just on principle for that guy.
I love that.
Because I love Patrick Warburton.
Listen, Dewdrop.
Yeah. You know, and yeah, I mean, you talk about a guy who just knows why he's being cast in something. And it's like, it's a paycheck. Sure thing. You got it. I thought that actually David Arquette got a bit of a chance to shine in this one. I liked Dewey felt a little bit more like a human being in this, maybe, than in the previous ones.
In the end.
Well, I like the where the character goes in this one. I thought the action in the house set was cleverly done. I like that. I thought that was well done. You can't have too much Lance Henriksen in a movie. In fact, I wish there had been more because I just like Lance Henriksen a whole lot. And it eventually ended. So, you know, there you go. Darren, how about you?
Yeah. Do you have anything to add that you liked?
No. Yeah. I think that was great. Like listing off every time someone like that showed up, like Lance Henriksen, it's like, oh, hey, like, I feel like I'd never see him in anything, you know, except for the things he's most popular for, like, you know, Aliens.
Like Alien versus Predator, you know?
Yeah.
Was that a movie?
But
weird.
Yeah, no, I think, like you said, Tristan, you know, I really liked how they handled Sydney as far as, at least for the beginning. Like, I totally bought, oh yeah, she sets up her space. She's out in the country. She's trying to give back and kind of like basically do everything but see a therapist, you know, of seeing, you know, doing the crisis line and things like that. So I buy that. I totally buy, just like in the second one where she got the caller ID and how she handled that. Like,
yeah,
that was very plausible. And I liked that grounding of the character. It's like, oh yeah, I can totally believe that she would do that. But then she just shows up on set and it's like, oh, okay, I guess she looked at page 42 and it said arrive soundstage Sydney and thus it must be. So yeah, and I think, you know, I think my favorite fight was inside the set house. You know, it was really clever. As you know, you're inside a house and your mind tells you you're inside, but then all of a sudden you're like, but that wall is not there and that door leads to nowhere. And, you know, do I go upstairs and do I go downstairs? And I thought that fight was my favorite of all the different ones.
And she uses it. Like she waits outside and then pulls him through. I thought that was a really smart thing to do. And that's a very Sydney thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, she's the smartest person in this whole group. So it's no wonder she survives. Yeah, and I tried to give it a little bit of not a pass, but the fact that watching it so back to back with 2, which I think did so many things well, like I knew as 3 was dragging on, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not the rose-colored glasses, it's the comparison. And often, we, not that we don't compare it, this whole podcast is about comparing, the movies, but not holding it hostage to when people saw this movie, they probably hadn't seen Scream or Scream 2 in like a year or so, or maybe they rented it or something like that. So I tried to recontextualize it, not like Darren's watch Kill Bill Volume 1 and then drive to the movie theater and watch Volume 2. Not everyone is that crazy. So
yeah, to me it was I like everything that you guys have said. I can't really add anything to it. One thing I didn't really like was Wes Craven has felt very inconsistent between 1, 2, and 3, where this is director focus podcast, but yet we were crapping on the writing, I think, for the most part. But it just felt like when you look at Craven from Nightmare and then to Scream 2 to Scream 3, you're just kind of like, where is he? Like if you said like, oh, Wes Craven didn't direct this one, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't see a cohesive style. I feel like it changes from one bit to the next, and not in a positive way, or at least not in an obvious way, like with the Harry Potter films, where you're like, oh yeah, this is totally the Alfonso Cuarón one. Where with this one, it's like it could have been like a journeyman, like it could have been, like a hired gun. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's a definite failing with Craven, but with all the craziness behind the scenes with the writing and the studio intervention and the MPA and everything like that, I kind of don't blame him. But then again, that's a director's job is to fight through the adversity of making movies. Anyway, John, I want you to give your rating real quick. I want you to kind of ground this movie for us.
I want to ask you, because in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers, I have the original review from Joey of Scream 3. Do you guys have any interest in hearing a small, tiny bit of it? Not the whole thing. It's a tome.
Yeah,
but
talk about dial-up.
Give us a little.
I'll give you a little taste. This is direct from Joey, what he wrote back in 2000, because I do my research for you guys. Okay, so watching Scream things like being told the same joke 50 times. You've already heard it, and it stopped being funny a long time ago. Yes, Wes Craven is back, and this time without that idiot Kevin Williamson, although nothing's changed. It's the same old BS. But he didn't say BS. Welcome to the final act, huh? My ass. I mean, who do they think they are kidding? With the way these franchises are milked, especially in this genre, there's no way this is it. Neve Campbell will be stalked until she's 50. Wait and see. That was the opening paragraph from Joey's review, and it got worse from there. He really, really, really disliked Scream 3. Did I feel the same way? Well, not that bad. I just think it's a dud. It just doesn't come together. But there's nothing in it that makes me like, at the end of it, I wasn't like, oh, screw this movie, this is terrible. I was like, it's there. So I'm going to give this a 2, because honestly, so far, it's been the law of diminishing returns with the Scream series. The first one was the best one so far. And then the second one, And then, no, Darren, it wasn't 5. And, but then this one, like, it just seems to slide as it goes forward. So it'll be really interesting to talk next week in light of that. So that's a 2 from me.
Darren, what about you?
Yeah. I think they were just really shooting themselves in the foot, not having a locked in story or concept or whatever, how it came. When you're talking about writing pages day of in this kind of a story, yeah, sometimes you can get magic in a bottle. More often than not, this is what's going to happen. That's why when you learn filmmaking, they're like, don't do this, like, unless you absolutely have to. It's not a good idea. And where, Scream 2 expanded it, they're at college, like there's a specific location, you had your boundaries. This one, I think they should have gone smaller. Like, go back to basics, go back to the city or something, like, to just keep it a smaller story. There's too many characters. There's too many plot lines and threads. And then they don't go anywhere with any of them. Like, even like Patrick, like we were saying, he's like, I'm not even the third act. Like, that's a tell, when the cop is not even at the end. So yeah, I'm giving this a 2 as well. I will probably never watch this movie again. and just enjoy the first and the second one.
I enjoy this movie because it's a part of the Scream franchise, and I think that's probably, it's like my Into Darkness. Like, I will still watch Into Darkness even though it's not a good movie at all, just because I love the characters and I love the world. Scream 3, originally I was just like, oh, it's stupid, it's fun, it's fine. But now I'm just kind of like, this is more of a mess than I remember, or at least more of a mess than I'd like to admit to myself. And so originally, this was a 3-star film for me. I think I'm knocking it down to 2.5 from this viewing. And so to me,
Ouch.
it goes down to 2.5 for me. And actually, with that in mind, like, because I've seen all the Scream films, it actually changes my rating a little bit, going from a 3 down to a 2.5, which maybe we'll discuss later.
Interesting. So we all slide down, you two most substantially, between Scream 2 and Scream 3. Interesting.
Well, I fell off a cliff between 2 and 3.
You sure did. You sure did.
I've only seen the next one once, and so I'm looking forward to reevaluating the next one. And speaking of which, Darren, what are we doing next week? It's a huge surprise.
Oh, yes. Well, no surprise that the franchise went on pause for 11 years as we jump to 2011, covering Scream 4 as we end the House of Craven here on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.